Hi, so today I'm going to talk about The Courage to Be Disliked and all the takeaways that I got from this book. So first of all, let me just start by saying that in this book, the author himself literally said that once he understood the psychology behind this book, it took him 10 years to truly adopt it inside of his lifestyle, and it's only been 6 months since I read this book, so I still have 9 years and 6 months left to really take this in. Let's get started. So the first main takeaway that I got from this book, this is something that everyone has in their life, and it's trauma. The chapter of this book was about how people can change, and the only thing stopping you from changing is your own decision not to change, basically. And I know that sounds so basic, but basically what he's trying to say is that people choose to be stuck in positions that they are stuck in purely because that was their goal to begin with. But the example that they use in this book was basically the student said that he has a friend, and his friend really struggles with social anxiety. So he really struggles with going outside, just doing anything, getting a job or whatever. And this friend, in his childhood, he suffered from some type of trauma, and mainly he really suffered with not getting any affection or any adoration or anything from his parents. And now at his adult life, he does not have a job, he stays at home, his parents do everything for him, they come over, they take care of him because he can't step outside of his house. Basically what the teacher said, he said that the reason that his friend cannot leave the house physically is because his goal was always to just have his parents adoration and his parents affection. And now that he's staying inside his house constantly, he's getting that. His goal is being achieved because he is getting exactly what he wanted from the beginning, which was his parents' affection. So he's choosing to use the response from his trauma, or the reaction from his trauma, or the side effects of his trauma as an excuse to carry on living this life because that's his goal. And I'm not discouraging trauma, and this book does not discourage trauma. It doesn't minimize it. It acknowledges that trauma is true, but that's not essentially what he's talking about. He's not talking about these major traumatic events. It's talking about how people use traumatic events as a response or as an excuse to live unhappy life, basically. And what he's essentially trying to say is all of us can change as long as we realize that the negative things that we're doing it out of a bad habit. We're doing it because we're getting a certain goal from it. So the main thing that I learned in this book was separation of tasks. Now, let me explain. So basically, what he said was, every single one of us has our own tasks to do in a day. Or in our life, we have our own tasks to do, we have our own responsibilities to do. So for me, I have to wake up, I have to go to university, I have to do my assignments, I have to get good grades, I have to cook food, I have to do laundry, I have to clean my room. Those are my tasks. So that's on surface level, those are my tasks. Somebody else's task, on the other hand, might be they have to wake up, they have to feed their kids, they have to go to work, they have to do whatever is your task, things that you have to do personally. Now, if you go a little bit deeper from that, my other tasks would be my opinions on people. So for example, my opinion on my opinion on this book, for example, that's my task. My opinion on this book is not the author's task, because I'm using my own mind and my own body to communicate these feelings, to communicate my thoughts. So it is my task, my opinion. If I was to come out here and say this book is horrible, this book is so shit, that is my task. That's not the author's task. It doesn't impact him in any way, because my opinion does not impact him in any way. How I implemented this analogy or this idea into my life is, I'm a content creator on TikTok, and I make content about sneakers and reselling and stuff like that. And I do get a lot of hate comments, and before I read this book, I had one video blow up and I had a lot of hate comments on there. And I used to look at all the comments, and they were really, really, really horrible things. And I used to just sit up and genuinely spend, I'm not even joking, genuinely spend at least 2 days just being sad, being depressed about all of these horrible comments, because I used to think why does this person not like me? Why does this person think my content is bad? Why does this person think this? Why does this person think that? Why is this? Why is this that? I would just genuinely just torture myself about that one certain comment. And after I read this book, I realized and I know this is such a basic analogy, and people might have already you might already do this in your life, but I know I didn't. But I realized that people's feelings and people's opinions on you is not your task. It's got nothing to do with you. It is frankly none of your business. Is, as I said, it's got nothing to do with you. What people think about you that they're using from their own brain, it's got nothing to do with you. Your task is to do whatever you're doing. So my task in that situation was to post that TikTok. My task in that situation was to record that TikTok. But my task in that situation is not to care about other people's opinions, because that's not my task. So when you realize that, and when you start separating these tasks, when you start separating your task from others, you will genuinely feel so much happier. Something that I really think about, that I read in this book, was about anger. Now, I'm somebody who gets angry a lot, or used to get angry a lot. I get angry about everything. I just have a lot of I just have a lot of anger. And sometimes I do react in situations. I react without thinking, and it comes out angry, obviously. And what he said in the book was that anger is a tool used to control others. And I had to pause for a bit when I read that bit, because it's true. So they gave an example. The student said that he went to a restaurant and he wore a really fancy like jacket, I think it was. And he went to this restaurant and he was eating alone, and the server came and the server accidentally spilled coffee on his jacket. And in that situation, he got up, started shouting at the waiter, so much, shouting really loud, getting really angry, saying horrible things, and he stormed outside. And he asked the teacher, he was like, how, why did I react like that? Why did I react in such a horrible way? What was the reason? Anger is emotion, why did I react like that? And the teacher basically said was that in that situation, what you were feeling was valid, but the way you convey it is really important. So the way he conveyed it was wrong, and he could have very easily just calmly told the waiter, could you please get me a tissue, or it's okay, don't worry about it. And the waiter would have easily said oh, I'll pay for the cleaning for the jacket, and I'm really sorry. And he would have apologized appropriately. But the reason he used anger in that situation was because he felt inferior being in this restaurant, and he felt that he had to take back control in that situation, and the only way he could do it is by expressing anger and making the waiter feel smaller than he does. And if you think about it, in most situations you use anger to make people feel beneath you. To make people feel like they are beneath you, or that you are in control of the situation. They're not in control of the situation. Almost everything I can think of are things that can be conveyed in a normal, peaceful, calm manner. Being angry is okay, but acting out, lashing out, shouting at people, that's not okay, because that is just a way of you showing power. And that, after I read that, it really did get me thinking, because as I said, I do get into arguments a lot. I used to be a very angry person, and it just made me realize that it's true that the way you convey your things, the way you convey your feelings when you're angry, is just the way that you use to control people. So now, another thing that really stood out to me was about how he said that we have to accept everything about ourselves. Now, if you watch a lot of self-help videos, if you read a lot of self-help books, you would see that people say that you need to love yourself, you need to accept yourself for who you are, and all of this. And in this book, they kind of go into a bit more detail about that. So basically what he says is that everything about you is objective. Let me explain. So for example, if someone was to say, oh, you have big ears to me. Now, the objective fact is that maybe I do have big ears, and that's the objective fact. Now, the subjective of that is an opinion on it. So if someone was to say big ears are ugly, that is subjective, that is an opinion. So what you need to focus on is objective. You need to focus on all the facts about yourself. So, and it's not just about your appearance, it's also about your personality. For me, I know that I'm someone that's always late. I really struggle with time management. That is one thing that I really struggle with, and I know that. So if someone was to insult me on my time management, I know I'm late. So their opinion on it does not really impact me because I already know. So once you start accepting every single like thing about yourself, and it's not necessarily like a weakness or like a strength, because if you look at it, in the book they talk about how whatever you're born with, you need to make the best use of it. You need to use it as the best tool. And so for example, me being late, yes, for some people they might think, oh, that's such a horrible quality, and yes, to a certain extent it might be a horrible quality, but at the same time, me being late and me not sticking to a schedule also means that I'm very spontaneous. I'm very adventurous. I know, like, I make very quick decisions because I don't stick to a schedule. I don't stick to like a timetable. So that quality is not necessarily good or it's not necessarily bad. It's got both sides. But the objective truth is that I'm late normally. Now the subjective would be, yes, it's a bad quality or yes, it's a good quality. But you need to focus on the objective truth, and whatever objective truths you have about yourself, you need to use that as a tool to make your life better. So in the book they talk about how the teacher, so the author I think of the book, he is a short man. Now he knows he's a short man. He's, I think they said in the book, he's like 5'2", and he knows that he's a short man, and he knows that sometimes people make fun of him for that. But he also knows that him being a short man benefits him in the way that because his work is to do with consulting, his work is to do with like a bit of therapy, life coaching, and he knows for a fact that him being short is a bit beneficial for him because it encourages people to be a bit more relaxed around him because they feel more comforted by his presence because he's short. And that's how he describes it. That's in his own words. That's how he describes it. So whatever qualities you have, don't think of them in a good way or a bad way, because before society like started, if you were just in one room your whole life, you being short, tall, fat, skinny, whatever, doesn't mean anything because you have nothing to compare yourself with. So therefore they're all just objective truths about yourself. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, you know. So there's no need to like feel bad about these things or have too much concern over things that you can't control, what you were given with, what you were born with. And on the other hand, obviously, if there's things that you don't like about yourself and the things that you can change, if you want to change them, change them. If you don't want to change them, you don't have to change them. But there's no point of sitting there and dwelling about it, being sad about it, because if you were, as I said, if you were locked in a room, and that's how they describe it in the book as well, if you were in just one room for your whole life and you had nothing to compare with, being short wouldn't be bad, being tall wouldn't be good, or vice versa. It would not matter, because these are all subjective things. These things are facts, these things are opinions. So don't listen to the opinions. And I think that really, like, I really liked that. That's also another thing that really like stuck with me in the book, and I remembered, because as I said, I did read it 6 months ago. There's quite a lot of things that like really got me thinking. And the main point of the book is how you can achieve freedom. And basically what he said was, freedom is the courage to be disliked. And as I said, that is the title of the book. What he means by that is the only way you would genuinely feel free, and the only way that you would genuinely feel like at peace, is if you are okay with people not liking you. And as I said, this is a very basic thing. This is something that we all know, but we forget, like, along our like complex lives. We forget, with all these complex situations going on with social media, with everything going on in our lives, we just forget. But it is okay for people to not like you. It is absolutely okay for people to hate you. It is completely fine. But if you're okay with it, that's when you've got freedom. Because when you can genuinely just be yourself and be fine with people having opinions about you, that's when you will feel freedom. And that is freedom. That is something like that obviously takes courage, because I'm still trying to work on it as well. Because obviously, like, when I hear people have opinions about me, or I feel that like somebody doesn't like me, I do like care, you know. And I want to reach to the point where I keep implementing this type of ideology into my life, where I don't care anymore, where I just focus on my own task. I separate those tasks. But it is difficult. But if you take it one step at a time, if you just start focusing on your own tasks and instead of looking outwards and looking at what everyone else is doing, you will generally feel so much more like at peace. Now, to finish it off, the one quote that I love from this book that I have not talked about yet is, "You are not living to satisfy others' expectations." So it really hit me because I used to be someone that was a big people pleaser, and maybe I still am a little bit till today. But what really hit me about that is that it's again about separation of task. You're not living to satisfy your parents' expectations, your relationship expectations, your friendship expectations. You're not living for any of that. You're just living. You're existing. And you just need to focus on the things you need to do, the things that are your tasks, the things that are in your control, and not focus on anything else. Because if you keep focusing on how this one certain person, or my partner thinks that da 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 about me, therefore I must change da 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 about me, that's his task, or that's her task. If they think that about you, let them think that about you. But obviously, like with all of this, just take it with a pinch of salt. Use this book as a suggestion, not as like a manual of how to live your life. But I would definitely recommend reading this book 100%. If I was to recommend reading any book, it would definitely be this one.